The 40-year takeaway. Hi everyone, Leo Notenboom here for askleo.com. Ask Leo is supported in part by its patrons. Patrons get ad-free access to askleo.com and they have access to exclusive content. If that all sounds interesting, visit askleo.com/patron to sign up today. So some years ago, this is an update to an article I did some years ago, I was feeling kind of, I'll just say, reflective, looking back on my career, which at that point was on the order of about 40 years worth of computing. As I record this, it's closer to 45. And it's been kind of interesting for a number of reasons to look back at where I've been. And by looking at that, make some generalizations about where you or your children might need to go. So, for example, let's take a look at some of the, I'll just call them highlights of my career. I have to read them because it is such a long list. So, I first started programming using punch cards. My first computer was an Apple II. I failed my first job interview horribly. Gosh, it was embarrassing because I couldn't do hexadecimal math in my head. I originally started working on a family of 8-bit processor-based data entry terminals. I was writing and supporting, everything from programming languages to communication software to the underlying operating system, the equivalent of a BIOS for that machine at the time. I moved to a small company in Redmond called Microsoft and began working on some of the very first PCs. There are things that we would recognize as PCs today. I played with an assortment of technologies. Once again, so many different things over the intervening 18 years. Again, from programming languages to websites to help text to all sorts of things that it's hard. I've got a long resume somewhere that's way out of date, but it lists a number of things that I did at my career at Microsoft. I was a manager and an individual contributor. I went back and forth between the two. I used to describe myself as having about a 2 to 3 year corporate attention span. Unfortunately, Microsoft supported that kind of occasional career change, or at least focus change. I left what was then a very large company in Redmond called Microsoft to retire, essentially, at age 44 and have a little bit more time of my own. I started my own entrepreneurial effort, now known as Ask Leo. And I continue to this day to play with, an assortment of technologies that have helped me not only write about things and explain things here on askleo.com, but also program web apps, play with new technologies, do various website hosting things, and just generally have fun with all of this technology that I've grown to love and experience. So it's a long list. And like I said, there's way more details that are buried in. That's just a highlight reel, if you will, of some of the things I've done in the past, now close to 45 years. Hidden in that list, though, is, I think, an important takeaway. And it's not at all obvious. The 40-year takeaway really is that there is nothing in that list that could have been predicted at the beginning. In other words, what I'm doing right now is not something that would have been predicted 40 years ago. The way the internet works, the things that I'm able to do, the way that I'm able to speak to you today, the camera that I'm using, the computer that I'm using, the technologies that I'm using, the skills that I've developed over this time are not things that I knew were coming or that I could have prepared myself for. These are not things that I would have been able to learn in school at that time. In fact, that tells us something very important. This kind of change that I've experienced over my career, it's not going to stop. It just isn't. It's always going to happen, and that's not a bad thing. But it does mean that one needs to pay attention to and prepare for exactly that. In the past, years past, generations past, you could train for a job and then do that job, retire, and then you're done, right? You could do an entire job, a single job, for the entirety of your career. That is no longer the case. In my opinion, it's not even close to being the case. There may be some edge cases where there's still some people able to do that, but by and large, the people who will end up being successful throughout their life and throughout their careers are people who will have changed what they do multiple times throughout their lifetime. That implies something important. Every step along the way of my career, it's always been about learning new stuff. For me, that was important. That was a criteria. Remember when I said that at Microsoft I had a 2 to 3 year corporate attention span? One of the things I looked for when I was looking for a new position within the company was, what can I learn? What will I walk away from this job with knowing that I didn't know before? What skills will I have that I didn't have before? That, I believe, whether it's something that appeals to you or not, is something that is crucial to continued success in, I'll just call it the modern world, for using an overused term. That ramification has its own set of ramifications. One of the things we don't do very well in school, at least not in the United States from what I've seen, is teach people how to learn. Oh yeah, there's lots of lip service to it, right? There's lots of statements about it, like a college education or even a high school education is all about learning. But the fact is, the way things are structured, it really is about learning how to remember things, learning how to memorize, learning how to pass a test. That's not the same as learning how to learn. Because once you're out of school, it's not over. You're going to have to continue to learn. So if there is one thing that I would impart on either you, parents, children, whomever, is that you can never stop learning, and you need to prepare yourself for a lifetime of learning. What that means, the bottom line, is that we need to teach our children how to learn so that they can be ready for a future that you and I can't even imagine. Because honestly, that's exactly what happened to me. And I'm grateful for the fact that I was able to learn the entire time. Hope that was interesting. For updates, for comments, because there are going to be comments, for related links and more, visit askleo.com/67362. I'm Leo Notenboom. This is askleo.com. Thanks for watching.